In the shadowed corners of England's storied past, there lies a tale that chills the bone. A story of mystery, witchcraft, and a quest for truth that still haunts us today. Our journey begins with a team of paranormal investigators, driven by an insatiable curiosity about the supernatural and the dark tales that history whispers. They set their sights on Pendle, a place etched in the annals of the paranormal, a land where the veil between our world and the eerie unknown seems perilously thin. These seekers of the macabre embarked on a pilgrimage to Lancashire in September 2021, their hearts brimming with anticipation. Their first stop, the enigmatic Clitheroe Castle, followed by the infamous Pendle Hill, a site shrouded in ominous lore. But before delving into the depths of Pendle's dark history, they found themselves with time to spare. Their wanderings led them to the quaint village of Newchurch, a place caught in the web of England's largest witch hunt, a haunting episode etched in the early 17th century. Here they explored a fascinating shop and the historic St. Mary's Church, a silent witness to the village's troubled past. The church itself holds secrets. The Eye of God, a mystical symbol, watches from the west side of its tower, while outside, the alleged grave of Alice Nutter, marked by a skull and crossbones, whispers tales of the Pendle witches. These witches, immortalized in the somber chronicles of Thomas Potts, the wonderful discovery of witches in the county of Lancaster, met a grim fate. 9 hanged at Lancaster and 1 at York, a chilling testament to the era's fear and superstition. But before we unveil the eerie happenings that unfolded during that fateful night with our paranormal investigators, let us first step back into the mists of time, to the story of the Pendle witches, a tale that captures the essence of scary stories, wraps it in the cloak of paranormal stories, and embodies the heart of horror stories. Stay with us as we journey beyond the Fringe, into a realm where history and mystery intertwine in the most unsettling of dances. In the summer of 1612, within the somber walls of a crowded courtroom, an air of grim anticipation hung heavy. It was the 18th of August, a day that would be etched in the annals of history with a stroke of darkness and despair. This was the setting for one of the most harrowing scenes in the saga of the Pendle witches, a trial that revealed the depths of human fear and superstition. At the heart of this chilling tale was a young girl, Janet Device, only 9 years old, yet thrust into a role that would seal the fates of many, including her own kin. Her testimony, given with the innocence of a child yet carrying the weight of life and death, was pivotal in the trial of 12 villagers from Pendle. The air in the courtroom was thick with tension as Janet's voice, trembling yet clear, resounded through the hushed room. Her words were not just evidence. They were a final, tragic act in a family drama that had been unfolding for years. 4 of the accused were Janet's own blood, members of her immediate family, ensnared in a web of suspicion and fear. The origins of this dark tale lay in a long-standing feud, a bitter rivalry that had smoldered for over a decade. This conflict, between Janet's grandmother, known as Old Demdike, and another local healer, Old Chaddocks, was steeped in enmity and mistrust. It was a feud that had allegedly led to the death of Janet's father, John, and set the stage for a series of events that would culminate in tragedy. Yet this deep-seated animosity between the two families was merely a backdrop, a reflection of the larger fears and superstitions that gripped the era. The witch hunt that ensued, sweeping up Janet and her family in its fervor, was less about the specifics of their feud and more a testament to the era's obsession with the dark arts and witchcraft. The tale of the Device family, entangled in a web of suspicion and fear, begins with a seemingly innocuous encounter in Trodden Forest. It was here, amidst the whispering trees, that Janet's older sister, Alison, crossed paths with a peddler named John Law. A simple request for pins, a mundane item yet laden with dark connotations in that era, set the stage for a series of events that would forever alter the fate of the Device family. Pins, in those times, were not just tools of the seamstress, but were often seen as instruments of witchcraft, invoking fear and suspicion. Alison's request was denied, and in the moments that followed, a black dog, an ominous figure in Folklore appeared at her side. It was then that she uttered a curse upon Law, who soon after suffered a stroke. Though Law himself did not accuse her, Alison, perhaps believing in her own powers, confessed to the crime and sought his forgiveness. As the shadow of witchcraft allegations grew darker, a clandestine meeting was convened at Malkin Tower, the home of Janet Device. It was Good Friday, a day of mourning in Protestant England. Yet this gathering was marked by the slaughter of a sheep, a detail that did not escape the notice of the judges. The meeting, intended to discuss the fallout from Alison's arrest and the growing suspicions, unwittingly laid the groundwork for a tragic unraveling. In this charged atmosphere, 9-year-old Janet Device emerged as an unlikely yet pivotal figure. Her tender age rendered her innocent in the eyes of the law, yet her words carried a weight far beyond her years. Janet's testimony painted a vivid picture of the meeting at Malkin Tower, claiming it was convened to christen Alison's familiar and to conspire in witchcraft. Her account implicated not just strangers, but her own flesh and blood, her grandmother, mother, sister, and brother. The chilling consequence of Janet's words was the unraveling of her family. Her testimony led to the execution of her grandmother, mother, sister, and brother, condemned for crimes that, through the lens of history, we recognize as figments of fear and superstition. In the dark and foreboding annals of Pendle's history, the confessions of the so-called witches paint a tale as eerie as it is tragic. At the core of this chilling narrative was old Demdike, a matriarch whose name became synonymous with witchcraft and whose story intertwines with the ominous world of the supernatural. According to the records, old Demdike, a figure shrouded in the mystery of dark arts, was said to have initiated a legacy of witchcraft within her own family. It began with a fateful encounter nearly 2 decades prior in the dense and shadowy forest of Pendle. There, as she journeyed home, a sinister spirit in the guise of a boy, garbed in a half-black, half-brown coat, confronted her. This spectral figure, known as Tib, offered her a Faustian bargain, her soul in exchange for the fulfillment of her desires. Tempted by the promise of gain, Demdike agreed, unwittingly setting in motion a chain of events that would haunt her lineage. For years, Demdike claimed she had little need to call upon her diabolical patron. However, a disturbing incident shattered this uneasy peace. On a seemingly ordinary Sunday, as she dozed with a child in her arms, Tib, now in the form of a brown dog, appeared once more. This spectral hound, an embodiment of her dark pact, began to draw blood from under her left arm. In a moment of terror, Demdike cried out for divine salvation, and the apparition disappeared, leaving her in a state of near madness for weeks. The story takes a more sinister turn with Demdike's blind journey to the house of Richard Baldwin, alongside her daughter. They sought compensation for services rendered at Baldwin's mill, only to be met with scorn and threats. Baldwin's harsh words, branding them as whores and witches, and his vow to burn and hang them, ignited a desire for vengeance. It was then that Tib reappeared, conspiring with Demdike in a plot against Baldwin, the details of which remain shrouded in mystery. The investigation began at the historic Clitheroe Castle, a structure steeped in mystery and debated origins. Believed to be of Norman origin and likely constructed in the 12th century, the castle was once the property of the de Lacy family. Over the centuries, its ownership shifted, eventually becoming part of the Duchy of Lancaster. In 1660, it was given to George Monk, the first Duke of Albemarle. The castle remained in private hands until 1920, when it was sold to the people of Clitheroe and transformed into a war memorial. Today, it houses the Clitheroe Castle Museum. The team conducted a mini-investigation of the castle grounds, engaging in spirit photography, a method often used in paranormal investigations. As they worked, there was an unmistakable feeling of being observed, a sensation that is not uncommon in such storied locations. Upon reviewing the photographs, they discovered an image that appeared to capture a spectral figure looking at them from the stairway. After exploring the castle, they moved towards their cars. The area was deserted, yet as they continued to take photos with a full-spectrum camera, an eerie figure seemed to be captured walking in front of them, despite the absence of any visible people in the vicinity. The next phase of their journey led them up Pendle Hill, driving toward the alleged site of Malkin Tower. Their guide, about to part ways, shared a chilling anecdote. Previously, while standing at the same location with another paranormal team, a tooth had been inexplicably thrown at them from an unseen source. As he recounted this tale, something hard struck one of the team members, bouncing off their arm. Despite searching, the object remained elusive, hidden by the long grass. Could it have been a tooth? The truth of this mysterious incident remains unknown. After their guide departed, the team activated their portal and spirit box, tools often used in paranormal investigations to communicate with the unseen. The air was thick with anticipation as they awaited responses from beyond. Almost immediately, a man's voice emerged from the static, uttering the words, "Hidden Tooth," followed by a woman's voice insisting, "Keep Tooth there." This enigmatic exchange seemed to resonate with the earlier mysterious incident involving the thrown object, further deepening the aura of mystery surrounding the investigation. In their quest for answers, the team posed various questions, probing for any links between the witches historically associated with the area and their current location, which they suspected might be the site of Malkin Tower. However, the responses from the spirit box remained elusive, offering no confirmation or details about the location's connection to the infamous Pendle witches. The investigation took a more haunting turn during a live video broadcast from the site. Through the portal, a child's voice began to speak, a voice filled with an eerie sense of urgency and despair. The child spoke of a priest and a desperate need for help. This unexpected voice, seemingly belonging to a child, stirred questions among the team. Given the age and the context, could this voice belong to Janet Device, the young girl central to the Pendle witch trials, who at just 9 years old found herself entangled in a web of accusations and witchcraft? The possibility that they were hearing the echoes of Janet's voice, reaching out across the centuries, added a chilling dimension to their investigation. As the night deepened, the team ventured towards a seemingly innocuous ledge that bore the resemblance of a quarry. In this shadowy, isolated spot, a new chapter of their investigation unfolded, one that veered into the realm of tragic historical events. While in this area, an unexpected sensation overwhelmed them, a feeling as if they had encountered an aircraft crash. Driven by curiosity and the compelling nature of this experience, they began to ask questions, reaching out into the darkness for answers. It was only after the investigation, through meticulous research, that they discovered a startling connection. The portal had indeed relayed information that correlated with an actual historical aircraft crash. One team member reported a particularly intense personal experience, a sensation of receiving a blow to the face, which even left a mark. This physical manifestation led to a moment of reflection. Could they be experiencing the residual impact of the crash? A phantom echo from the past. The crash in question involved FO John R. Runnels, who was piloting the third aircraft in a flight of 5 P-47s on a ferry flight from East Wretham to Wharton. The flight, led by Captain Charles Francis, also included Lit Giles, Second Lit Donald L. Mosher, and Lit Johnson. Captain Francis, experienced in British weather conditions and wartime navigation, had been cleared to lead this flight for modification purposes. However, the weather conditions on that fateful day were far from ideal. 10 minutes after their scheduled takeoff, a weather officer received reports of deteriorating conditions over Wharton. Captain Francis was informed of this change and advised against proceeding, but he chose to continue. The flight took off at 14:50, but soon after, Lieutenant Giles lost contact and proceeded alone. The remaining pilots pressed on, but as they approached Liverpool, they were engulfed in zero visibility and were forced to rely on their instruments. In this treacherous environment, Second Lieutenant Mosher lost contact with the group and eventually managed a landing at Ringway. The mysterious fate of FO John R. Runnels in the aftermath of his separation from the flight group adds a poignant layer to this haunting narrative. As the fog enveloped the skies, it's believed that Runnels, like his counterparts, found himself isolated, navigating solely by instruments in a desperate attempt to find a break in the cloud cover. Tragically, it seems his aircraft eventually succumbed to a lack of fuel. The post-crash examination of his aircraft revealed several telling details. There was no indication of a fire at the crash site. The fuel tanks were dry, and the oil on the engine showed no signs of heat exposure, suggesting the engine was not running at the moment of impact. Additionally, there were no propeller gouges along the aircraft's crash path, often seen in crashes where the engine is still operational upon impact. Runnels's final moments hinted at a valiant attempt to make a forced landing. He had successfully cleared the summit of Pendle Hill and was seemingly aiming for a landing on the opposite side. However, fate had a different plan, and his aircraft fell short, crashing and breaking apart on the rough moorland as it descended the hillside. The wreckage of Runnels's aircraft was officially reported as salvaged on the 21st of February 1944. Yet remnants of the crash lingered on the moor for many years, including the pilot's back armor. This piece of the aircraft, a silent witness to the tragic events of that day, is believed to have been recovered more recently and is still held locally. On that fateful day, the tragedy extended beyond the loss of F.O. John R. Runnels. Captain Charles Francis, piloting P-47-42-8621, also met a tragic end as his aircraft dived into the ground near their intended destination, Bad to Wharton, at 16:30. Both Runnels and Francis, two airmen linked by a shared destiny, now rest in the Cambridge American Cemetery in England, their graves a solemn testament to the perils faced by those in the skies during wartime. The investigation team, immersed in the haunting atmosphere of the site, experienced further unsettling moments. Through the portal, a voice distinctly mentioned a Charlie and uttered the chilling words, "The plane's gone." This unexpected communication seemed to echo the tragic events of the past, bridging the gap between history and the present. The investigation also delved into the infamous Great Assembly and Feast at Malkin Tower on Good Friday in 1612, a key event in the Pendle witch trials. The names of those reputed to have attended included Elizabeth Device, Alice Nutter, Catherine Hewitt, John Bulcock, Jane Bulcock, and others. A roll call of individuals caught in the web of witchcraft accusations. As the team continued their exploration, the portal voiced additional names and phrases. Allison, Grace, followed by haunting declarations like Grace is dead, murderers, and Alice is boss. The voices also mentioned names such as Robert, Bob, and Annie killed. These communications seemed to intertwine the stories of the Pendle witches with the spectral remnants of the aircraft tragedy. The mention of Rich, Dog, and Zippet evoked questions. Were these references to Dame Demdike's familiar, the dog that played a significant role in her witchcraft confession? As we reach the end of our journey into the shadowy past, we find ourselves reflecting on the trials of the Pendle witches, a notorious chapter in English history. The year was 1612, and in the rural expanse surrounding Pendle Hill in Lancashire, a series of events unfolded that would leave an indelible mark on the annals of witchcraft and the supernatural. 12 individuals, whose lives were intertwined with the rolling hills of Lancashire, found themselves at the heart of a maelstrom of suspicion and fear. They stood accused of committing heinous acts, charged with the murders of 10 people through the alleged use of witchcraft. These trials were not isolated incidents, but part of a broader phenomenon sweeping across the land, known as the Lancashire witch trials. The majority of these accused souls faced their judgment at the Lancaster Assizes on the 18th and 19th of August 1612, their fates sealed in a courtroom echoing with accusations and fear. These trials, which also included the Samlesbury witches and others, are remembered as some of the best documented witch trials of the 17th century. One of the accused was tried at York Assizes on July 27, 1612, while another never saw trial, succumbing to the cold embrace of death in the confines of a prison cell. Of the 11 who stood trial, 9 women and 2 men, 10 were condemned to the gallows, their lives ending in the shadow of the noose. Only one was fortunate enough to be acquitted. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the past. where the echoes of centuries-old tales still resonate with eerie clarity. Until next time, when we once again delve into the mysteries that lie just beyond the fringe.